So good afternoon, everyone. First, I would like to thank you, Michael, and the PRCA for your invitation. As I am French, I told you apologize for my English and my accent so Frenchy. I will make my best. Okay, so then our topic today is what's the impact of COVID-19 on earned media. In the world of media, the COVID crisis revealed an incredible paradox. In one hand, for the first time in history, digital information reached record audiences on all continents. And on the other hand, at the same time, advertising investment have been hard hit. Despite a drop in advertising investment, earned media has been operating at full capacity. Actually, even long before the COVID crisis, the media industry was facing major structural challenges and new perspectives. The consequences of the pandemic have somewhat accelerated the emerging trends observed over the past several years. People who know me know that I really love history. And in history, all the major crises, whether international, politics, social, or health crises, they have generated developments and brought change. This is exactly what Jeremy Parola, Director of Digital for the Real World Media Group, said. He said that today's pandemic has been a driving force for innovation. So I have written a report to highlight how earned media has changed across 8 trends and what this means for communication and PR professionals. I have selected for you several of them for today. So the first trend is the great media return. So just wait a minute. Okay. You can see on my screen the Kantar survey on the evolution of behaviors and consequences for brands during the COVID crisis reveals an increase in media consumption. Actually, there was an exponential growth in digital subscription, but also an increase in audiences. In this context, the media wanted to know this audience better and identify their expectations with the aim of creating a new social link between media brands and communities of readers. This requires a multiplication of the formats of information. All professionals in the sector agree that the crisis has speeded up the digital transition of the media. Digital is a growth driver, even if it partially compensates for the declines in print. In this context, the major brands or media groups that have been working for more than a decade on the subject have a head start, a true digital culture. And this is not limited to the publication of exclusive content or the takeover of print content. No, it is distinguished by a multiplication of digital initiatives and innovations. And this is exactly what media brands did. They multiply their formats, new editorial formats, new habits, new audiences, new forms of writing, etc. Media brands have produced videos, podcasts, and multiplied initiatives like fact-checking, live streaming. Media brands use their media in all formats, allowing consumers to read, to listen, and to see information, and even participate with testimonials and Q&A. Today, the challenge for media groups is therefore to retain the digital audience gained during the lockdown and to respond to new usages such as the consumption of the delinearizations of the news, catch-up, use of smartphones, etc. So it's more, I want to say that it's more of a rebound than a reboot or a restart. In this process, the test and learn strategy remains important, even from a sales point of view for the media. The media have been constantly testing new offers to attract consumers and a new readership. Multimedia offers, limited time offers, freemium, paywalls, and formulas for a new relationship with their audiences. What does it mean for PR? The multiplication of digital formats forces professionals in the sector to better understand the nature of these communication channels. The question is finally how PR professionals can take the best of these new channels. And I think that multimedia consumption forces PR agencies and professionals to understand, but to adapt their communication to these different types of media. At the same time, PR agencies should review their expectations in terms of return of investment for each category of media, each type of format, and each audience. How can we explain the great media return? We think that one of the key reasons of this great return is the trust in news. In the new world of fake news, the trust that consumers may have in journalism is growing. The rate here on the screen is at 50% in UK in our survey made during the COVID crisis. But this rate grows in all the countries where we operate, in France, in Spain, etc. Consumer trust towards different media channels is changing with newspapers, with radio and TV, which are the most trusted formats today. As you can see on this next slide, our Dimension 2020 survey anticipated this trend regarding brands, trust in brands in the media. 76% of consumers say they trust news and information's website, and 73% say they trust newspapers and magazines to get information about brands and services. Throughout this crisis, consumers were very attentive to the news. In a natural resilience effect, they turned to news less to commented information. Indeed, consumers need professional information, ethical information. People want and need trustworthy stories, said Amish Mackenzie, co-founder of the Substack.com platform for journalists. As a result, trust will be more likely to come from traditional channels, press, TV, radio, rather than from social networks deemed unreliable. That is why, for PR in times of crisis, the media brand is an asset. The renewed confidence in traditional media is pushing PR professionals to communicate in reliable mainstream media, which gives them authority and credibility. Earned media builds trust. Earned media allows brands or organizations to gain credit from the media they use. The primary mission of media is to inform readers, to inform listeners or viewers, but it is also to inform, useful, and convey values. This is another trend. During the COVID crisis, the media consumers have fled commentarism. Media consumers have searched useful news in their daily lives. During the crisis, very practical editorial lines were defined by clearly relaying what to do or not to do, how to live from day to day, sharing experiences, health advice, practical guides, etc. This has helped media brands, especially local ones, to build closer relationship with their readers. There is another trend, defending values. During the crisis, the courage of the healthcare staff was praised, but also supported by original and very concrete initiatives. The media are facing the same move as we see in marketing or advertising. What PR agency in France has called frugal marketing, a sort of call for humility and a return to essential values in a world in crisis. By highlighting positive initiatives here and there, actions and networks that show solidarity, heroism, good news, the media, more than ever, have been complying with their role of public utility. They have brought positive news against the backdrop of the crisis. And they did it always with a view of resilience and proximity. What does it mean for PR? For several years now, brands have seen a real focus on communication based on values: authenticity, search for meaning, respect for the environment, etc. This is a trend that is not going to slow down. On the contrary, it is becoming a must-have for any campaign. But beware. Beware of what? Beware of brand bashing if there is a difference between what brands do and what they say. In our media trends and perspective in 2020, my colleague Pablo Gomez from Kantar Insight said to be seen as authentic in its activism on a particular issue, a brand must only guarantee that this lasts for its purpose from one end of its value chain to the other. Do what you say what you do. Last but not the least, advertising, which means money for media. As said, the COVID crisis has led to an increase in digital media consumption. However, at the same time, the crisis has caused a drop in print sales and a drastic fall in advertising. In order to cope with this situation, media brands have deployed numerous subscription models with one single goal: to convert new audiences into subscribers. Nevertheless, with rare exceptions, even the addition of new subscribers doesn't fully compensate for advertising revenue losses. As a result, the economic model for press remains more fragile than ever, even precarious for some. Monetizing audience is the challenge in an unstable and fragmented media world. In the face of the coronavirus crisis, asking for support from governments seems unavoidable. In some instances, emergency plans have been enacted to support the press. Fernando Yarza, president of World Association of News Publishers, said, "If there is no help, it will be a tsunami and a tragedy for democracy." If there is no help for press, of course, for media. So specific aid, investment credit, institutional advertising campaigns, tax credits, zero rate VAT, etc., etc. There is no shortage of ideas, but they are subject to the financial capacities of the states, which are already under great pressure. Hence, the desire to address big techs like Google and Facebook. The domination of Google and Facebook in the digital advertising market is beginning to generate much opposition around the world, in Australia, in the United States, and in Europe for more than 10 years now. That is why Google finally announced last week that they will support the press with $1 billion. Google pledges $1 billion in licensing payments to news publishers, declared the Wall Street Journal last week. It is not the first time that they give money, but this is the first time that such amount will be paid to support journalism. Is it a good news? Yes, of course, we can't complain for the media, but It will be mainly for, I think, for the huge publishers, exactly like it happened in Spain. So I am more skeptical with the medium and small publishers. What does it mean for PR? PR professionals must diversify their communication and tailor it towards a broader spread of channels. They must do it in order to compensate, finally, for the slowdown of established and traditional media. Diversifying means reaching out to network influencers, community leaders, new creators, exploring new independent or associative media, tracking emerging media, etc., etc. Then, as you can see, the earned media has not finished changing, and it is up to the PR professionals to follow up these changes. I am letting you to have a look on the report, which is in our website, Kantar.com. And if you want to practice your French or your Spanish, it exists in this language too. So thank you very much.
Thank you, Christophe. That was a really interesting chat. And I would like to take you back to the very start, actually, of your presentation about the consumer habits. I found that particularly interesting in around, are you expecting the trend of consumer habits to continue in the direction that it is? Or do you think that this is a momentary approach because of COVID? Are you expecting that to change going forward, or is this some things to come?
It depends the types of media. I am confident with news on the web because people will have the habit to subscribe now. It wasn't the case before the crisis. Regarding the print, they will continue to slow and to decline, but slowly. I don't believe in a big decrease from one day to another. Regarding TV on demand, for example, our report last year of media trends and perspectives in media at Kantar, we underlined the fact that we could have a subscription fatigue because you have so many offers today that people usually have one subscription, two subscriptions on TV, rarely 3 subscriptions or 4 subscriptions. So it depends the types of media. But, it's a question of I was really impressed by a report made by Havas in France about what they are calling frugal marketing. People perhaps will take time to live more than they did before. And when you take time to live, you read more, you take time to know more and to develop your knowledge. And so I'm a positive and optimistic guy. That's why I think that the future will be better than the past. But again, it depends the types of format, and it depends the types of, for example, print or media. In UK, I haven't seen any development of regional press, but in France, we saw it. We saw this regional development, and it was impressive to see that people wanted this proximity with the news because they want to know what happens near them. It is totally natural. So you have some nuances depending the types of media and the types of format.
Thanks for that. That's really interesting. If I can pass it now on to the floor, if anyone has any questions for Christophe, please just jump in and ask your question.
Sophia, I'm sure you have one question. Yeah.
Go ahead, Carmel. You're on mute.
You're on mute. You're on mute, Carmel. If you can.
I keep pressing the button and it's not complying. Anyway, thank you so much, Christophe. That was really, really interesting and useful for me. I work with students, and that will really update the current understanding. In some respects, it reflects things like the Reuters digital survey, which talked about increasing gravitation towards things like subscriptions and the trust of trusted media sources of, say, a year ago. To what extent are you able to ascertain whether this is just a kind of continuing trend or whether this is down to the COVID situation? Was that something you were able to kind of make the distinction?
As I said, I don't have any, I can't say what will happen in the future, but I am confident, because I think that people will have new habits, really. And it won't be only it won't be only with the background of the crisis. The main question really is the advertising question, because it means media needs money, of course, and the digital subscription can replace the print in the future, but only for big media, only for huge groups like New York Times, like Wall Street Journal, Les Echos in France, El País in Spain, Frankfurter Allgemeine Zeitung in Germany, etc., etc. So I think that the law of the biggest will prevail. I mean, will be the more important. So I'm not so positive with medium publishers and small publishers. I think they will suffer, but we must recognize that Google helped these small publishers too. And there was a fund during the crisis which was created by Google to support these small publishers. So we will see. Let's make an update next year.
Anyone else have any further questions themselves?
Lyndon?
Yeah, morning, Christophe. That was really interesting. Thank you. I'm fascinated by, on the chart, you had that consumer trust in earned media was higher than that in advertising, despite advertising being regulated. So I'm curious if you kind of have any insights as to why that might be.
So this slide comes from our survey Dimension. And Dimension is not only on reputation intelligence, because I work for reputation intelligence activity in Kantar, at Kantar. This is a global survey made by Kantar. And this global survey integrates all the data regarding ads, because we make monitoring of the ads for companies in a lot of countries in the world. So I can send to you the link to, or Michael can send to you the link to the Dimension survey, and you will have more information on this.
Great, thank you.
You have all the details about how the ads, how the influencers are important today, how they involve, and what the consumers expect.
Awesome. I just find it fascinating that people trust something that isn't regulated. So you don't have to necessarily publish stuff which is completely true. Whereas in adverts, it's regulated and you can't make false statements. So I'm fascinated by that. Okay.
Any other question?
Yeah, I think that's all. Final call for anyone. If not, thank you so much,